Russia's President Vladimir Putin has vowed to crash what he called an armed mutiny in a televised address. It comes after Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the Wagner mercenary group, said he wanted to oust Russia's military leadership. The Russian army says it is carrying out combat measures in the southern region of Voronezh. Further south, Prigozhin says his Wagner forces have taken control of key military sites in the city of Rostov-on-Don. This includes the region's military headquarters, a key logistical base for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Prigozhin denies, however, he's staging a coup, as Russian authorities declare a counter-terrorist operation in Moscow. Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin says his troops are prepared to die for their cause.
Residents in Rostov-on-Don awoke to startling scenes on Saturday. Mercenaries from the Wagner group stationed on the streets. Their leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, says he wants to oust Russia's military leadership, marking a significant escalation of infighting between the two sides. President Vladimir Putin urged Wagner mercenaries to abandon the uprising and said decisive action will be taken to stabilize the situation in Rostov-on-Don in a televised address.
Actions that split our unity are an abandonment of our people, of our comrades in arms who are now fighting in the front. This is a stab in the back of our country and our people.
Prigozhin has accused Russia's military leadership of launching strikes on his troops and says they are deceiving the president.
They still hope that they can win this war. But as long as there is no management, no military successes, the leadership of the Ministry of Defense is carefully deceiving the president. And the president receives those reports that do not correspond to reality in any way. There are two agendas, one on the ground, the other on the president's desk.
The Wagner group has played a key role in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Emboldened by gains on the battlefield, like here in Bakhmut, Prigozhin's criticism of the Kremlin had been growing ever louder. That criticism now becoming a major threat to and its entire military leadership.
DW correspondent Roman Goncharenko joins us now with the latest. Hello, Roman. Prigozhin claims his troops have entered Russian territory, specifically Rostov-on-Don. And now we're hearing about the neighboring Voronezh region. What more can you tell us?
Well, the situation is developing very, very fast. The latest what I've seen on social media, and these are, of course, mostly unconfirmed reports, are footages of explosions and shootings near the headquarters of the Russian army in Rostov-on-Don. So it looks like the Russian army or special forces are trying to crack down on what President Putin called an armed mutiny, treason. So, but there is no, I haven't seen any reports about heavy fighting. So we have sporadic, maybe pockets of fighting, and the Wagner troops are presumably trying to move towards Moscow, but it's a long way, and these are hundreds of miles. And the Russian army, we've also seen footages from Moscow, from the capital. The Russian forces are trying to stop them there. So they are pulling up Russian forces. The big question is, of course, how much Russian military has inside the country to crack down on this, to bring this to an end, because most forces that Russia has are now deployed in Ukraine. And we are also hearing reports that some of them are being pulled out of Ukraine to now fight the Prigozhin mercenaries. So it is a very difficult situation, of course, for the Russian army in Ukraine.
Just a quick one on what you just said. Are you somehow suggesting that Russia may not have enough forces to stop the Wagner group from approaching Moscow?
Exactly. This is the big question. I do not know. The answer is we do not know. But what we've seen in the past weeks, when Ukrainian forces and maybe, in the past weeks, we've seen the Russians coming from Ukrainian territory, fighting in the border region of Belgorod. saying that some of them are Russian nationalists or some of them are even neo-fascists or neo-Nazis. Anyway, that showed that the border is open. There are hardly any forces there left to protect the Russian cities from such an incursion from Ukrainian territory by Russian citizens, armed Russian citizens, probably supported by Ukraine. And that is the answer to your question. We do not know how many forces are there around the Russian capital. There must be some, but we don't know how many. Prigozhin, anyway, has a lot of soldiers on his side. We don't know exactly how many, but the situation came to this point where they are moving in columns towards Rostov-on-Don, towards regions like Voronezh, and maybe towards Moscow, is a sign that maybe Russia doesn't have enough to stop them.
Okay. Maybe a quick one on this before you go. What has been the reaction to all of this inside Russia? What are you hearing?
Well, in one word, it's a shock. Most people didn't expect any of this to happen. So they somehow believe that the system is very, very stable, and it is not. The events of the past hours have shown that the Russian power system is not stable, and it is now shaking like it's never been shaken before. Maybe during the Chechen war we've seen something like this, but it's over 20 years now, and everybody has forgotten how it is to have a real civil war inside Russia, and that the tanks are moving. You hear shots. There are helicopters being shot down or military planes being shot down. Tanks in the towns, in the centers of big Russian cities. We haven't seen pictures like that for many years, and it's a shock. It's a shock, and many people fear that Russia might subside into a civil war like 100 years ago, when in 1917, 1918, after the First World War, during the First World War, the war is still going on. There was a revolution in Russia, and then there was a civil war, very bloody civil war.
Yeah. DW correspondent Roman Goncharenko. We'll be hearing more from you later on in the show. Thank you very much. Let's now cross to Mikhail Kasyanov, who was Russia's prime minister from 2000 to 2004 in Vladimir Putin's first administration. Now he's with the opposition People's Freedom Party in Russia. He joins me now from the Latvian capital, Riga. Hello, and welcome to the program, sir. What's your reaction to the extraordinary events that have unfolded over the past few hours?
Oh, such tension or such a conflict was inevitable. That's absolutely the case. Mr. Putin created this problem himself. He let his friend Prigozhin just to be stronger and stronger during those months. He tried to divide and rule. He just created an instrument at his hands of pressing military commanders, those generals. And right now, this conflict appeared to be too serious. And that's what, for Mr. Putin, that's the only way to suppress this mutiny. And that's his morning order, just to first they started the criminal case against Prigozhin, and his order to suppress. That's what should be implemented. That's what we will see, whether this order will be implemented by special forces within 2 days. If not, the regime collapse started. I think just inevitably the regime will collapse, but the speed of this depends first of suppressing of this coup, and secondly of success of Ukrainian army on the battlefield. We, of course, all see that Putin created problems for the country, for people of Russia, and now developments started.
Okay, I mean, you're definitely making this sound very serious. How much of a threat is this standoff to Putin's power?
If it will not be suppressed within 2 days, that's a serious challenge for Mr. Putin himself. It's a very serious challenge. Now, just there is an order by Kremlin for all people who speakers who just could be express their position, starting with the ministers or governors of regions and including deputies of Duma. They all just making the statements of loyalty to Mr. Putin. And Mr. Kadyrov also said, just express his statement loyalty to Mr. Putin, and ready, as he said, send his military troops to Rostov-on-Don just to suppress the mutiny. We'll see these developments. We don't know how it will develop within 2 days, but 2 days, not more. If it's not finished, Mr. Putin already in big problems.
Given your past experience working with Vladimir Putin and your familiarity with him, what approach could he take going forward?
He taken just very serious. He made a serious choice to suppress all this coup, and that means just he will order all available forces to stop this. Of course, they didn't want to blood to appear just this morning, but we will see what happens later today and tomorrow. I think just if Prigozhin don't stop all his operation now, it means just that the bloody operation would be tomorrow. I think that is the only way for Mr. Putin to survive. Otherwise, his power will be diluted, and people around him started to already see him as a weak, not leader, but weak president who is not a leader anymore, and simply just the fanatic, just blinded by his impunity. And that's what we shall see. He should demonstrate this strong hand. That's what we will see today and tomorrow.
So where does the Russian population stand in all of this?
Russian population just very much just divided, and they cannot do anything right now. Just that's Mr. Putin spent 20 years to create the problems, to atomize just all people. Just they don't have any collective activity. Mr. Putin spent 20 years to press people so that they will never think about just collective actions, just to protect their constitutional rights. That's why people right now cannot do anything. What we can see, of course, that is problems on the so-called ruling elite. If Mr. Putin will not be able within the short period of time to settle the problem with Prigozhin, in this case, just people will not implement Putin's orders just in an appropriate manner. That means just beginning of the end of Putin's regime.
So while all this is going on, there's still an ongoing war in Ukraine. What does this mean for that war? Can Russia really afford fighting on two fronts, against the Ukrainian troops and against Wagner in Russia?
Of course, the main problem for Putin, that's war against Ukraine. And that is the major trigger for collapse of his regime. It means success of counteroffensive operation of Ukrainian army on the battlefield. But the Wagner case should be looked as not as a great stuff compared with the defeat on a front with Ukraine. That's why just I'm saying, if within 2 days Putin doesn't settle the issue with Prigozhin, it means big problems appear, because just then even his, I would say, defense against counteroffensive operation of Ukraine would not be so strong. It means just very quick collapse of the regime we will be watching on. Today, that is a crucial point for Mr. Putin to suppress this mutiny organized by Prigozhin, and then will be another problem. Success of Ukrainian operation on the battlefield. That would be another very just strong kick on Putin's regime.
Okay. Former Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Kasyanov, thank you very much.
Thank you.